Greetings. I'm here at Three Oaks on October 14, and this is Telling the Truth in Love number 13. And this video, I just want to bring attention to attention. So on YouTube, not a surprise, a lot of people are here seeking attention. That's not really my motivation. I don't really ask people to like or subscribe videos or anything like that, and that's one of the rare times you'll even hear me say that. Those words on these videos. I really just want to bring attention to things. Not that I don't have my moments of enjoying. I think we all crave attention sometimes. That's not why I make these videos. I want to bring attention to things that are important for us to have conversations about, to work through in the world around us. So the reason why this is important, I've been reflecting on some passages in the Bible recently. I'm a Christian, as I said. I follow Christ. I believe in Him. I believe what the Bible says. It takes work to understand it, time and prayer and reflection and conversation with people. Most of all, testing it, really trying to live it out. That's the only way to really understand anything, is through lived experience. So I've been reflecting a lot on Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount. This is chapters 5 through 7, and particularly chapter 6. Jesus starts out by saying, be careful not to do what's right in front of people to be seen by them. So he goes on to give some examples about, you could basically say, giving to charity or meeting needs, in the community around you, or let's say us. And he talks about, I'll put it into the category of displays of religiosity. I'm not using the word religiosity in a negative sense. People can do anything religiously. It's just what you do consistently on a regular basis out of devotion and that sort of thing. It's the outward. It's the outward things that are attached to what's important to you. So, but when it's done, when those things are done to be seen by people, Jesus is saying there's a problem with that. Well, he's actually saying, not just there's a problem with that. He says don't be like that, but he's saying that those who do that, they are getting something out of it. They are. There is he calls it a reward. That word in the original language could also mean their payment. Like, what's your compensation for something that you've done, some work you've done? You get your check, you get your pay, your wages, right? So those people they've earned something by these public displays of religiosity, whether it's praying or giving, materially or financially or that sort of thing. So use an extreme example, these a formal, or maybe not super formal, but just we see these moments where people have a lot of money, give to a cause, and they have this big giant check, they're holding it in front of the camera. It says $1 million or whatever, and it's for everybody to see. It's nationally televised or whatever, or now you can see it all around the world on YouTube. So he's talking about seeking attention, people who are seeking attention. Now, what he tells his students, or those who are listening to him, is he doesn't say don't do it to be seen. What he says is do things such as giving and praying. And an example he uses is fasting, which is, at the time this was something that people would do people still do, excuse me, but back when he was talking to them, in their culture, it was very much part of the Jewish culture. I believe there are like a couple days of the week they would regularly fast. There are all kinds of religious fasts in the Jewish culture, under the law of Moses, and even today. A lot of religions have fasts. People fast today for health reasons, okay? People on certain diets like keto diets or other diets, those are not associated with some kind of faith, religious faith perhaps, just to be healthy. So, but what he's saying is, when you fast, don't make it look like you're suffering, like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten for, how many hours or days, and you're making faces, maybe you don't take care of yourself, you look unkempt because you just, whatever, it's where we're trying. I believe nowadays we call that virtue signaling. Look how virtuous I am, doing this good thing. And so he says, don't do it to be seen by people. What he says is, do it in secret so that the one who sees what's done in secret will reward you. So there's a reward when you do things to be seen by people, which is basically you just got attention. So that's your reward. And maybe admiration, or people think you're whatever, just so virtuous, so admirable. But then he says there is a different kind of reward. So the reason I'm sharing this is what this all pivots on here, in terms of what Jesus is saying is important, is he's appealing to that part of us that does things to be seen. We want to be recognized. We want to be seen. And isn't that something we hear? I feel like I'm not being seen, right? Our efforts, maybe what we've suffered, some kind of injustice or discrimination or sacrifice, as a single parent, particular race, particular kind of work. It's that person who does the thankless job, who works quietly and nobody notices. Or maybe you're in a group of people and you just feel like you're invisible. Nobody sees you. Nobody gives you a chance to speak. You're not heard. You're not seen. Maybe you're a child. And this is, not getting into any kind of clinical assessment, but there's all kinds of talk about abuse, trauma. There's neglect. Trauma can also be an outcome, can be a result from neglect, not just abuse. And neglect is not getting the attention that you need, is your needs not being met, whether it's physical, emotional, etc. So I wanted to kind of start here with what was Jesus is saying in Matthew 6. But I have a friend named my friend Shep. I was recently speaking with him, and he made an observation that in the Jewish culture, they characterize God as a God who sees. And it really got me thinking, there's a situation in the Jewish scriptures regarding a fairly well-known situation here. It's regarding Abraham and Sarah. Abraham, very highly respected by many many people nowadays. And they had a servant by the name of Hagar, um, not perhaps the most beautiful name today for a woman, but in American culture. But her name's Hagar, and she had a son named Ishmael. So it was Abraham's first biological son, but he did not, he didn't carry on the promise of Abraham, the legacy. That was Isaac who did. But here's Ishmael and his mother Hagar, and she was forced out. She was made to leave their home, their camp. And so she's out in the desert, and she expected herself and her son to die of exposure and hunger and no water, that sort of thing. And the passage talks about how this is in Genesis 16:13, how God had come to um, basically take care of her needs and tell her to return to Abraham and Sarah. And she says, well, I'll just read this. Hagar gave this name to the Lord who had spoken to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, here I have seen the one who sees me. It's such a beautiful passage. Well, I thought further on what my friend Shep said, and it's interesting. I believe the Bible always characterizes God this way. At the very beginning, Genesis, very well-known statement. God said, let there be light. The next phrase says, and God saw the light was good. So from the very beginning, we see this quality of God that he does see. Theologians would call him omniscient, or I guess it would be all-knowing, all-seeing. Not sure what all-seeing would be, but a lot of people consider God all-seeing, everywhere, and all-knowing. That's perhaps a bit too vague and vast for me. This really hits home that God sees me, and He sees what I do. Now, some people use that to create fear, to create instill a fear of God, like watch out, God's watching you, you better be careful what you do. Okay, yeah, that's there as well. But I don't believe God wants us to be motivated by intimidation. He wants us to be motivated by love and confidence in His love and security. That it's like a child. If you see a small child and they get separated from their parents and they look around, they don't see their parent, they start getting really insecure, really really scared and upset. Or they can. Some kids are different; they just wander off, and it's like they couldn't care. But a lot of children they experience that. They want to know that they're seen and they can see and be seen by their parent, and so that's kind of how I look at it. This is the kind of relationship that Jesus wants us to envision with God is, and just how it exists in the world, is that, hey, God sees me. It's okay. He sees what's going on. He sees what's happening to me. And, wow, I said something wrong. I did something wrong, but, okay, I'm still here. Lightning hasn't struck. He's not some reactive, triggered God who's just gonna, Father. Jesus, wants us to call God Father. He's not this kind of Father who's just, always got his hand raised, ready to, discipline us or whatever. He portrays God as very gracious and merciful, and so. My question is, do you crave attention? Do you feel overlooked, unheard, or unseen? I would encourage you to look at Matthew 6. Go to Genesis 1. Go to Genesis 16:13 and look at Hagar. Go to these. Go really. You could go almost anywhere to start. A starting point. Good starting point is Jesus and the Gospels. But and hey, you might not be a Christian. You may not believe in God. You may be very critical of God. The idea that there's a God. You may think maybe you don't even care. Like doesn't even cross your mind. Or maybe you've been a Christian 30 years and you are still struggling, with some things like you're maybe in your friend group, your faith community. Maybe you show up and you leave because you don't feel connected because you don't feel seen and heard. Okay? So these are all things that we struggle with, but I just want to share this. Now, once we get to a place where we're not starving for attention, where we we can feel safe and secure and watched over and understood, knowing that God's here, that He knows what's going on and He's got things under control. Once we're in that place, we can start unhindered giving attention to people who are craving it. And hey, maybe they're not showing that very well. Maybe they're seeking attention in ways that seem unhealthy or disruptive. Well, they just need some help. They just need some right kind of love and attention, right? Just as we all do. And like me, maybe you want to bring some things to. Maybe you want to bring attention to some things, like I'm doing in this video. Love to hear your thoughts about this. For me personally, yeah, I've been on a journey the past couple years, and especially the past year. It's there's been a real change in this area for me, where I used to struggle a lot with insecurity, this picture that Jesus paints of being seen, and that kind of security that comes from that like a healthy way of being seen by God as a loving Father. Yeah, I really struggle with that, and so I don't think I wasn't always coming from a good place. When I didn't cope well with feeling like felt I was being overlooked or not listened to. But God really helped me with that past year or two. So I hope this has helped you. Feel free to share any thoughts. I'm still working on all this stuff. Hope it helped you.